Hello, are you here to debate?
Absolutely.
All right, what's your name and how old are you?
My name's Adam. I'm 37.
All right, Adam, what topic are you here to debate about?
Basically, your hatred for the police.
When did I start hating the police?
Well, I mean, you said to abolish them, I do believe.
Correct.
Okay, and if that happens, what happens after that?
We would have a world without police.
And how would that work?
Yes, the abolition of police and prisons is not a bottom-down or a top-down concept. It's a bottom-up concept. So what we're basically saying is we need to correct the current system of policing in prisons, the one that currently operates under a carceral and retributive state of justice, and replace it with one that would operate under a transformative and restorative state of justice. And by doing so, we would see less of a need for okay, I didn't know it was your turn to talk. Go ahead.
Once again, I'm sorry. You show me one place this has worked.
Norway. Most Scandinavian countries, actually, that have implemented this model.
And what rights do their people have?
The same rights as our people.
They can carry guns and travel freely?
Can they carry guns?
Absolutely,
and travel freely. They can definitely travel freely. I don't know the intricacies of gun ownership in Scandinavian countries, but they definitely have freedom to travel. That's what makes America better. Is that we can carry guns?
Absolutely. Don't you agree? We have more rights than any other country.
So first of all, gun ownership would be a privilege, not really a right. Any right that needs to be granted by a government body is a privilege. It's not like a human right. So we do have the legal right, sure, right? But illegal, I don't really care about like if a right has to remain legal. Like we could always amend that. But personally, I think if it meant having less crime and less violence, I would be for losing guns. I don't want to because I'm a leftist, so we are in favor of gun ownership. But if the trade-off is less crime and less violence, why would I not want that trade-off?
No, I'm right there with you. I've seen what happened in Australia, but the thing is, the only people that are not going to have guns are law-abiding citizens. So, remember when you guys
well, most guns that are committed in crimes are obtained legally.
Okay, but when we banned
like 80 to 90%,
we made drugs illegal. Remember that solved it.
Well, yes, that's because the government pumped drugs into neighborhoods. So, I mean, if the government pumps guns into neighborhoods, yeah, we would still see an issue.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, Operation Contra.
This systematic racism. We okay.
What? Who talked about anything about race?
No, I want to touch on your racism talk too.
Okay, all I'm saying is that you're making the claim that drugs were made illegal, but people still did drugs. Yes, but when the war on drugs happened and we heavily cracked down on drugs, the government was also funneling drugs into neighborhoods. So you can't really get rid of drugs if you're gonna pump them into places.
Okay, I'm gonna listen and not talk over you. I'm sorry. Where is your basis that the government pumped drugs into a neighborhood?
Yeah, the CIA admitted to this during Operation Contra. So if you just look up like Operation Contra,
is that in Detroit?
It was in multiple different areas, but like they've wholly admitted to it, like time and time again. They've not been quiet about it. You can look up specifically the CIA Contra crack cocaine controversy, a review of the Justice Department's investigations and prosecutions.
I'm not arguing any of that, but what do you think the government's benefit to that was?
They got more people into prisons, which they were using to generate cheap labor. They were also making money on the back end on the sale of the trafficking of cocaine.
I think we definitely agree on the prison system and it being especially financially gaining. But my thing is like, I would like to know your thoughts on systematic racism and how if there's systematic racism, why do we have degrees for black people only? Why do we have colleges for black people
I'm sorry,
only?
can you show me a single college that has no white students?
No, no,
Okay.
I can't. But they are
So then we don't
primarily.
have
Can
that.
you show me a Can you show me a college that has all white students?
No, I couldn't. I would never claim that colleges having students means there is no or is racism, right? I would want to look at the disparities between the students, right? Like the fact that white people get the bulk of both
Affirmative action
need-based.
has
Oh,
hurt black
okay.
people more than it has helped them.
Yes, because affirmative action primarily helped white women get jobs. Yes, I wouldn't disagree with this.
Okay. No, I'll agree with that. Affirmative action in general. Who come up with that? Wasn't the Republicans?
I don't really care who came up with that.
1967, I think. But
what is that?
So,
Well, wait. The whether affirmative action helped had nothing to do with the people making it. It had to do with the companies that were forced to utilize it. They realized that they could skate past hiring black people by just hiring white women and still meet those same quotas that they were like forced into making.
what is wrong with the best person for the job? And not only that, why is the black neighborhoods the father in the home rate so low? Is it because we're locking them up?
No, it's just because black people don't get married. When you look at the fatherlessness rates quoted by like the
Absolutely.
census, they're just looking at married or unmarried. They're not even looking at cohabitated mostly. They're just looking at whether or not a couple is married or unmarried. So the myth of fatherlessness in the black home is just not a thing. Because the CDC did a report and found that black fathers are actually the most involved in their children's lives out of every race.
Absolutely not. This is a culture problem, and
Okay,
you're ignoring
absolutely
it
not. Provide counter evidence, because I just provided you. I can provide you the exact name of the CDC report.
Okay, so there's more black fathers in the home than white fathers now?
Nope, that's not the claim I made. The claim was that black fathers are more involved in their children's lives.
Is that because they have more time?
Is it because they have more time?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's not the real reasons they gave. They didn't really give a reason as to why. They just showed who is or is not involved, and black fathers were the most involved.
Well, why is the incarceration rate so high?
Because black neighborhoods are over-policed.
They're open. Why? If they're over, where do you live?
What are you, a cop?
No, but I'm just saying you wouldn't live in a black neighborhood. I know you wouldn't.
I currently live in a historically black town, so yeah, there are tons of black people near me. I don't know what that has to. My next door neighbors are literally black. What is?
Okay, well, I'll give you an example. I live in Tulsa, in North Tulsa. You can talk about Black Wall Street all you want. You can talk about everything. Nobody wants to put a grocery store in North Tulsa. You know why? It's not a black and white thing. It's a culture thing.
I'm sorry. What is black
higher,
culture?
Huh?
What's
no, I didn't say black culture. I said culture because there's Mexicans, white people, and everyone that lives there.
Property crime is directly tied to poverty, like directly. As poverty rates go up, crime goes up. It's like a 1-to-1 line. So like most of these areas have systemic poverty. A lot of them due to like systemic redlining, which was a systemically racist policy that happened between the 30s and the 70s. So like it doesn't shock me that these areas are still reeling from the repercussions of like systemically racist policies that had been afflicted to them for like hundreds of years.
Okay, I'm going to agree with you on that. And I guess the next thing I want to say is, how do we fix it? What are your recommendations to take a neighborhood like that, where a gas station has to have 2 armed security guards? There's no grocery store. How do you fix it?
We invest
better government housing, less policing.
We invest in the community. We focus on building people out of poverty, so that they don't need. Maybe in areas like that, we look at like universal basic income, so people aren't forced to work multiple jobs. Maybe we look at better before and after school care, because one of the things we know that leads to like children getting into crime related activity is not having proper before and after school care. Maybe we look into these methods. Maybe we invest in the education there, so teachers aren't running 30 students to one teacher per classroom, so that kids can actually get a proper education and actually have the proper attention they need to do these things.
So I think everything you said, honestly, really good, and I would love nothing more than that to happen, but it's not. And why
I
is
know
it
it's
not?
not, because our government is full of racists who don't want it to happen because they need a steady supply of prisoners. So instead, they want to keep these areas poor so that the school to prison pipeline can remain as intact as it has ever been, because they generate a profit off of prison labor.
Uh, well, that's interesting. I never really, yeah. Those are good points, but also you would not move into a, say, bad neighborhood, whether you're white or black or Mexican
Yeah,
or anything. You know why?
most people wouldn't purposely move into bad to like neighborhoods with crime. Yeah.
Right. But my thing is, how can we get away from crime? How can we enforce more police?
No, we fix systemic poverty. Like I just said, I just gave you all the ways to
Oh
decrease
no,
crime
no,
rate.
right at the school system. I agree, and I didn't argue
That's
with
how we
that.
do it. That
But
it's not a quick. There's no quick fix to poverty, right?
where's that being done though? What state? And show me that works, because I've been to Georgia, I've been to Mississippi, I've been, Florida's pretty
What do you
good.
mean show you it work? Nobody's doing that. Nobody's investing in communities. So what do you mean show you where nobody's doing it?
So I guess, are you saying we should take predominantly black high schools and do more there than we do for, say, predominantly white high schools? Tell me.
High schools that are predominantly black do need more, because those are high schools that have historically been underfunded. So they do not have as much as high schools that are from predominantly white areas. So yeah, we
Not
should
my state.
fix the historic underfunding of predominantly black high schools. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, but I'm going to go ahead and say in my state, Booker T. Washington, for one, in Tulsa, a lot of state championships, a lot of great athletes. It's a charter school. I mean, but it's predominantly black, and it's a neighborhood that's still not good, nowhere near good.
I don't know what point you're trying to make with that.
Well, I mean,
Like, personally,
basically,
I don't.
there are good schools that are predominantly black. I think basically you're making excuses for, well, we're underfunded. That's why. When
You think I'm
every
making
day there's
excuses? There are more. So first of all, I just looked up the student diversity at Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa. The predominant, the predominant racial group is white. 32% white, 27% black, 22% Hispanic, 5% American Indian, 3% Asian.
perfect
So
melting pot, then that should be the perfect example,
it's not
right?
about a melting pot. I feel like you just haven't been listening to anything that I said.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm trying to be open and listen, but I'm just like,
Areas that are predominantly black have been predominantly underfunded for like hundreds of years, right? Going
okay.
back as
So
far
what
as to like the you taking it as far back as like the freeing of slaves, right? These places have been
Can you
underfunded.
can you just give me one city or town or school system to where I can try to understand what you're saying?
Like an underfunded commute, like city
Absolutely.
school.
Yes.
Most of the inner city public schools in places like Chicago or like Detroit
Okay.
or New
Both
York
Democrat
even.
ran, right?
What does okay. I
Well, I
don't
mean,
care
th-
about
no,
Democrat
no, no,
versus
no.
Republican. I don't care about that. That has nothing to.
Well,
I could care less.
why don't you look at the predominantly black schools in Republican areas and see how much better they're doing? You don't want to.
What? What? Okay, it's gonna be the same.
No
You think
way.
Alabama? You
Detroit.
think
Okay.
inner city Alabama public schools that are predominantly black are gonna do better than inner city public schools in Detroit or Chicago?
Absolutely. Pull up the test scores. Go ahead. I know you're googling.
Test
Go ahead.
scores don't mean anything.
What do you
I
mean they
don't
don't mean it? What are you
care. I
going
don't
off of, man?
care how someone
What do you go
tests.
graduation rate? What do you want to go off of?
I care about the success of the person after they leave school. I care
Well,
about
how the
the
hell are you
schools.
going to know that? I'm simply. You started talking statistics, and then I started talking statistics, and you don't want to do that.
Well, wait, you haven't. Wait, you haven't provided any statistics. The only thing you've said is that, oh well, Tulsa, Booker T. Washington out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, is a predominantly black school, and when it's not. Like, where's your what actual statistics do you want me to try to look up?
You just said that you think Michigan students are getting a better education than Alabama students, right?
Nope. I said you're probably going to see similar outcomes between inner city schools in like Chicago and Detroit and inner city schools in like in like Alabama, whatever inner city is in Alabama is. I don't know.
Mobile, Alabama. I got you. Okay.
I want
So-
is Mobile an inner city? I don't know. I don't know enough about Alabama. But we can go even further. We can look at like Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia's not a fucking red state.
Absolutely. Okay.
I'm
So-
sorry, blue state. Georgia's not a blue state. Last I checked, Georgia was pretty red.
Either way, would you say America has gotten more racist in the last 20 years?
No.
No.
What does that? No, but what does that matter?
So things are getting better, right?
Sure, if I have a plate full of shit and I scrape off 25% of the shit and give it to you, just because there's less shit on it doesn't mean there's still not shit on the plate. I don't care if it's gotten better if the problem still exists. I'm
Well,
glad it's
how are
gotten
we
better,
ever
but
gonna-
the problem still exists. And systemic
Okay.
racism is a curable problem. It's not a
How do
problem
we
we
cure it?
have to have.
How do we cure it?
I've already answered this.
No. Do we pay reparations? Is that the cure?
We could pay reparations, sure. It's not a cure. One
Why
thing
would we
is
pay
not
reparations when no one alive has been
You
a slave?
fucking
and no
brought
one
up
alive has
reparations,
had-
my dude. I didn't even bring it up. You said, should we pay reparations? I was like, sure, fuck it. I don't know. One thing is not going to fix systemic racism. It is a multifaceted problem that needs a multifaceted solution.
Okay, I agree. I do agree with you on that. And I will agree that racism does exist. But what I have a hard time with is, how did America get slaves? Where did they come from? Who are they bought
Africa, Haiti, the Caribbeans, multiple
Who
countries.
sold them? Who sold them?
Depends on which country you went to.
Okay. And why is the hatred towards the white man?
Because the laws surrounding chattel slavery were directed specifically at black people. The laws surrounding chattel slavery were not directed at white people. It wasn't, white people weren't 3/5 of a person, were they? No, black
No,
people were,
and I
even
hate
free
that.
black people.
I absolutely don't agree with any of that, and I'm on your side on that.
I'm
I
claiming
really
you
am.
do.
My question is, I just don't know why you're not more angry as to like how this even happened. It's almost like it's my problem now. I have to fix it,
The
right?
system of racism in America was created by white people. Black people didn't come
Okay.
over to America and enslave other black people.
That's very true. Go ahead.
So who else do we look at to fix a system but the people benefiting from said system?
How do we have a black president? How do we have so many highly paid black musicians, black Athletes.
Because white people have loved to watch black people shuck and jive for years. There were paid black musicians during slavery times, right? Just because white people love
Yeah.
to watch us shake our asses and create music that they typically tend to steal and profit off of does not mean that there's not systemic racism.
Okay, then why? Okay, good point. Good point. I mean, I guess I wasn't around back then. Never had a slave. Never knew a slave, or knew anyone that had one. So it's very
I would
hard for
hope
me.
not. Otherwise, you'd be like 200 years old.
Right, but yet we're still talking about this.
Because the impact of chattel slavery and the things done immediately after chattel slavery to try to maintain chattel slavery are still affecting the disparities that we see within our systems today.
I don't know how you have people like Candace Owens, and you have prolific people that are. I don't. How did they?
Candace Owens is someone who likes to claim racism doesn't exist, but literally sued her school for racism. She's just grifting. She's just lying to you and taking people's money, which good for her, I guess.
I mean, she's not lying to me.
She's lying to everybody. She's a grifter.
Oh, I think it's weird that when you have some outspoken. Okay, let's talk about Kamala Harris. How is she? What does she do?
I don't really know much of what Kamala Harris does in her daily life. A whole bunch of nothing, probably, because presidents and vice presidents do a whole lot of nothing. Do you think Kamala Harris is some champion of black people? Should I have a statue erected of Kamala Harris outside of the NAACP? We're not a monolith.
Hell no.
One black person doesn't determine how well an entire race is doing. What determines this is the averages that we see. Like the fact that black people have a median wealth of $14,000, while white people have a median wealth of $170,000. These disparities tend to show that most black people aren't really doing that hot.
I would agree. And
so
not
then stop bringing up outliers to try to make your point for you. Do you want to go tit for tat? Because every successful black person you pull up, I can pull up 10 successful white people. We can go tit for tat. I'll be here longer than you. I'll be here longer. How did George Bush become president?
Well, I mean,
how did Joe Biden become president?
How
did Donald Trump become president?
This country's so racist. I don't know how Joe Biden would have ever.
Do you know what?
Not Joe Biden.
Do you know what systemic racism is? Like when we talk about racism being systemic. Do you know what this means?
I'm trying.
So systemic racism means there are systems that operate independently of specific laws or policies that will create oppression via disparities to benefit one racial group at the detriment of another racial group.
So I guess I'm really trying to take that in and think about it, because in the black neighborhoods I've been in, there's nothing but liquor stores and cash checking places, and in my mind, I thought that was because anything else would be robbed. Is that racist? Me saying that?
Pretty racist, yeah.
I didn't mean it to be, but I just figured if they had a... Where do you live? What state? You don't have to tell me, but just what state?
What did he say?
I'm trying to get a
I live in a state of anguish right now. That's the state I live in.
No, man. I'm trying to get an idea of what the fuck you're dealing with, so you can understand what I'm dealing with. Okay, don't tell me your state.
It does not matter. It does not matter what experience I may have with something. When I'm not talking about individuals, we're speaking on the whole. So whether or not I have experienced something does not remove the empirical evidence we have that shows that this is happening.
Because you don't know. Absolutely it does, because you don't know. Have you been there?
What does it matter? Wait, here, let me ask you a question. And you just answer me truthfully here. Have you personally ever experienced have you personally ever hit an iceberg in the Antarctic and had a ship go down and a bunch of people die?
Not an iceberg, no.
Then how do you know? How do you know that the people in the Titanic died? You never experienced it. How do you know that there was suffering here? You haven't experienced this.
Okay, we're talking about now, and you're trying to that's a weird way of.
Sure. Have you ever? Wait. Okay. Sure. I'll bring in another one. I guess I'll just throw you multiple examples. Have you ever been? Have you ever had tons of white phosphorus dropped on you?
You haven't either, but no, I haven't.
Okay, so that means it's never happened.
Have you ever?
Right? That means it's not a thing, right?
Let's talk about something maybe we both could have done, because the way America is, a lot of people get put in handcuffs. Have you ever been detained?
What does that matter to the argument?
What race are you?
What does this matter to the argument?
What's the argument, I guess? I thought
the argument is, does systemic racism exist? Whether I have experienced it firsthand or not doesn't matter to the argument. There's a reason why I never talk about whether or not I have, right? Because all it is, either I've went through it and you're going to say that the experiences I went through weren't his systemic racism, or I haven't gone through it and you're going to claim, well, systemic racism doesn't exist because you haven't gone through it. There is no scenario where my personal experiences change your mind, and there's no scenario where my personal experiences aren't going to be weaponized against me in the argument. It's pointless. Debate the actual points that I've made so far.
No. No. So if you haven't been in handcuffs, I don't know how you can talk on.
If you're not going to debate the points I've made, bye. See ya. So long.